South China Morning Post, 13th of December 2022, China sues the U.S. in the WTO for its chip export restrictions, calling the practice trade protectionism. Beijing has filed a lawsuit at the World Trade Organization to contest new U.S. limits on semiconductor exports and other high-tech exports to Chinese companies as Washington pushes forward to exclude China from the global technology supply chain. The WTO's dispute settlement body received Beijing's protest on Monday, according to a statement released by the Chinese Ministry of Commerce on December 12. The ministry charged that by restricting the shipment of chip products to China due to security concerns, the U.S. was engaging in a common practice of trade protectionism. The statement added, "In recent years, the U.S. side has consistently overextended the notion of national security, abused export control mechanisms, and hampered the normal international trade of chips and other products. That weakened the world economic and trade order, broke international economic and trade regulations, defied basic economic laws, and adversely affected the interests of international peace and development." Beijing was harshly criticized at a time when the two biggest economies on Earth were still engaged in a protracted technological conflict. In a 139-page document released in October, the U.S. Commerce Department's Bureau of Industry and Security updated limits on China's ability to purchase high-end U.S. semiconductor technology, machinery, and even talent. Observers have compared the new regulations to the Soviet Union's decision to stop providing technical assistance to Mao Zedong's efforts to develop the atomic bomb. According to one analyst, American export restrictions would destroy, harm, or circumscribe many Chinese chip companies. A week after the most recent limitations, Chinese President Xi Jinping said the nation must continue working toward technological self-reliance while addressing the Communist Party of China's 20th National Congress. Beijing's ambassador to Washington, Qin Gang, claimed that the U.S. had politicized and weaponized economic concerns to outcompete China as the driving force behind all of its China policies. More than 1,000 Chinese businesses, according to him, had been added to several lists for American export restrictions and sanctions. Last week, Qin stated that some people argue for competing properly. But how do these actions relate to the responsible competition? It has been suggested that Washington's success hinges on a unifying approach from its essential allies, particularly advanced chip tool manufacturers in Japan and the Netherlands since the Biden administration announced unilateral chip export limits. There has been debate over whether Washington was compromising the interests of its friends in the chip battle with Beijing for its geopolitical objectives, which has led to questions about which of its major allies would act. Nevertheless, according to Bloomberg on Monday, which cited people familiar with the situation, Japan and the Netherlands have, in principle, agreed to join the U.S. in tightening controls over the transfer of sophisticated chip-making machinery to China. The world's largest manufacturer of cutting-edge computer chips, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, revealed last week that it would invest an additional $40 billion at its Arizona production base. According to Alan Estevez, the U.S. Commerce Department's Industry and Security Undersecretary, the U.S. was in a robust discussion with its allies about chip export bans against China, and a decision was on standby. Estevez asserted that U.S. allies were aware of Washington's justification for the most recent limits, which were designed to prevent China from producing advanced semiconductors. "We're still debating what that implies for them." At a symposium hosted by the Center for Strategic and International Studies last week, he stated that they are allies and share our values and threats here. To protect the nation's legitimate rights and interests, the Chinese Trade Ministry declared that pursuing the case before the WTO was essential. "We hope that the U.S. side will give up zero-sum game mentality, correct its defensive measures promptly, cease impeding the sale of high-tech goods like chips, and preserve regular economic and trade exchanges between China and the U.S., the statement stated. Allowing China to rob the globe and develop into an authoritarian power while remaining silent about it. The lengthy dispute settlement procedure in the WTO has begun with China's request. The United States will have 60 days to start negotiations. Beijing can request the creation of a WTO panel if negotiations fall, which can take up to 45 days to appoint and 6 months to complete. However, as globalization becomes less prevalent, the WTO has lost its usefulness.